5 best, 1 worst, wide receiver edition. Welcome to Talking Football. My name is Justin Pennick, and we are continuing to march on for the 3rd day in a row with our 5 best, 1 worst positional rankings videos. First 2 days, we did the quarterbacks and running backs. Today is the wide receivers.
Give me that, give me that, give me that, give me that, hit me with the wide receiver.
Love that song. Did it as a Talking Giants intro one time. Can sing it if I wanted to, but I'm not going to put you through that because I am a nice person. So what we do on these 5 best, 1 worst positional rankings videos is we have some statistical metrics, and my eyes. We combine all of those rankings and those measurements to come up with a 5 best list of who are the 5 best in a given spot. So go back to the previous videos to look at the point system and how we do it. I explained it all in the quarterback and running back video if you haven't seen those. But if you're here for the 3rd day in a row, thank you for being here. Let's get right to it. Instead of 10 categories today, there's only 5. There are only 5 categories that I'm using today, and this is kind of on me. You know, I need to find some better metrics to evaluate wide receivers because let's say DVOA, for example, on Football Outsiders, it had like Terry McLaurin as like a negative DVOA and one of the worst in the league. Now, I'm never going to take one efficiency metric and say, oh, that wide receiver is the worst in the league. That quarterback's one of the worst in the league. There has to be context to every single stat, but I just want to stay away from it. If I don't know necessarily how a certain stat fits in a certain position or how to rate it, I'm going to look into it, I'm going to find it, and I'm not going to talk about it like I know what I'm talking about. So, the categories that we used for today are total receiving yards, receptions, PFF grade, most receiving yards on catches of 20 plus yards, and my eyes. So 5 categories. If you get a perfect, if you're perfect in all 5, then you get a total of 50 points. So this is going to be out of 50 points today. So let's get to the list, shall we? Let's get right cooking. Coming in at the number 5 spot, we have Justin Jefferson, 2nd-year wide receiver from the Minnesota Vikings. It's so strange because, you know, we heard rumblings from Vikings camp that, you know, they actually viewed in training camp Justin Jefferson to be like their number 1 wide receiver, not necessarily Adam Thielen. And we're looking at it like, you know, what the heck? I mean, I know Stefon Diggs was traded away, but Adam Thielen was expected to be that number 1 last year, just expected to step right in. And Justin Jefferson was not the first wide receiver taken in that class. I mean, there was Ruggs that was taken ahead of him, there was Lamb that was taken ahead of him, and there was also Jerry Jeudy that was taken ahead of him. So, you know, Justin Jefferson being, you know, a borderline 1st, 2nd round pick, and he's going to be the number 1 in Minnesota with Adam Thielen there. It's like, oh, okay, well, good luck, Minnesota. And lo and behold, what Justin Jefferson did best last year was running routes to the opposite side of the field. I feel like a staple of that Minnesota offense was crossing routes and play action, getting Kirk Cousins kind of out of the pocket and running crossing routes. It used to be with Diggs and Thielen, and now Justin Jefferson kind of stepped into that seamlessly, and it's so fun to look at the NFL Next Gen spray chart. I recommend you going on NFL Next Gen stats and the website and then looking at charts and then looking at the spray charts of like various wide receivers across the NFL, specifically for the receivers that are on this list. It's so fun because you get to see the long vertical routes that they run, the yards after the catch that they're able to generate. It's so fun to see what routes these guys run in the extensive route tree that a lot of these guys have. And Justin Jefferson for year 1 was tremendously impressive in what he was able to do. Getting separation on routes going to the opposite side of the field, but also making those contested catches when he needs to as well to produce those explosive plays for the Vikings offense, which was one of the most explosive in the National Football League last year. Basically, Justin Jefferson had 16 yards per catch on a 70% catch rate. Bizarre. That's insane. So a lot of guys that are big play guys, if they get 15, 16 yards per catch, their catch rates sound like 60%. And we're still considering that to be a solid season. But no, not Justin Jefferson. He had the catch rate of like a slot wide receiver. He did line up in the slot a decent amount. But he had the catch rate of a slot wide receiver, but the yards per reception for a big outside wide receiver as well. Best of both worlds. So Justin Jefferson is number 5. Number 4 is Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill is a veto. I give myself 1 veto every single episode, and Tyreek Hill is my veto because originally Justin Jefferson was number 4 on this list, and Allen Robinson was number 5. So Allen Robinson had 16 points out of a possible 50, so I pushed him out. And that's not a referendum on Allen Robinson. I just really wanted to get Tyreek Hill in this list, and I put him at number 4 as my veto. Tyreek Hill, every single year, he's a lock to average 5 yards after the catch per reception. I mean, he's a lock. And that's usually the best in the NFL. Like the best receivers, not guys necessarily that are getting targeted in the intermediate part of the field. I mean, I'm talking about purified, is that the word? Bona fide, number 1 wide receivers. He is a lock to get that 5 yards after catch, and he's getting all the attention, which is crazy too. He's getting all the attention of, whether it's safety help, corner help, and it helps when you have Travis Kelce on that team too, who's also going to generate some extra attention as well. But he's a lock to get 5 yards after the catch every single, I don't want to say every single reception, but every single year when you look at his body of work, he's going to get 5 yards after the catch per reception. The speed is unmatched. In 2018, he had 6 yards after the catch per reception, and his average depth of target was 15 yards. That's insane. That's unheard of. Usually you have a lot of, like you look at running backs, for example, they're averaging like 8 yards after the catch per reception because they're being targeted less than 1 yard down the field. Tyreek Hill his average depth of target was 15 in 2018, and he had 6 yards after the catch per reception on average. So 2018, very good year for Tyreek Hill. Also had a solid year in 2022. I feel like that's like his normal. Like his 2020 season was now going to be his normal until maybe he starts to regresses when he gets a little older. But he's still got, I think, a few more years of being on top because I feel like he's getting faster. He's a workhorse. I mean, granted, the guys that always post on Instagram the most, that post on Instagram that they're working out the most, I feel like those are the guys that are perceived that they're working the hardest, but neither here nor there. Tyreek Hill is really good. All right, so number 3 on the list is DeAndre Hopkins with 24 points out of a possible 50. DeAndre Hopkins has had a 100-catch season every single year since 2018. And 2017 in 15 games, he had 96 catches. So you want to know what? I'm just going to say it. He's had a 100-catch season every single year since 2017. So the last 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. That's 4 years. Good job counting. Good job counting me. Math is hard for me sometimes when it's not done for me and then put in front of me. So yes, last 4 years, he's had a 100 catch season. If DeAndre Hopkins puts together 1 or 2 more seasons of 100 plus catches, which I can easily see him doing. I mean, he actually has been in the league for a little bit now, which is kind of crazy to think about. But if he could put together 1 or 2 more seasons, then I think he's a Hall of Famer. Lock of a Hall of Famer, DeAndre Hopkins will be. And it's actually interesting to see his NFL Next Gen route tree. How in Arizona last year, it was kind of extremely repetitive, where I feel like he only caught balls on the left side of the football field. He would line up pre-snap on the left side of the football field, and unlike other guys on this list, like Justin Jefferson, for example, where he would be crossing the football field and, creating explosive plays that way, DeAndre Hopkins didn't do that last year in Cliff Kingsbury's system. Cliff Kingsbury, say that again, Justin. Cliff Kingsbury's offense, and I think a lot of people are starting to get a little frustrated with Kingsbury. Maybe not necessarily his rushing scheme. However, his rushing scheme did dramatically change from 2019 to 2020 from outside zone, and then he really ran inside the tackles a lot. And Kingsbury's rushing scheme is like the most fun part about his offense. His passing game isn't really anything unique. And especially you look at the way that he used Hopkins, it's like, I feel like you should use this dude more. But it still worked. It still worked for a really good season for DeAndre Hopkins. And the dude, you can just toss the ball up to him, doesn't matter where he is on the football field, intermediate part of the field or deep part of the field, dude's going to come down with it because he is one of the league's best wide receivers. But this just goes to show that if any other team were to use their number 1 wide receiver this way, outside of maybe the guys that are on this list, if any other team were to use their wide receivers like this, I don't know how effective they would be because the route tree is kind of repetitive. And DeAndre Hopkins doesn't catch a ball on anywhere but the left side of the football field, which is kind of absurd. So a little strange thing about DeAndre Hopkins, but still, number 3 on this list, another 100-catch season. He's going to be a Hall of Famer if he puts together 1 or 2 more seasons like he has in the past. So good for DeAndre Hopkins, number 3. In my eyes, I mean, he was number 2. And if it weren't for Devonta Adams just having some banana seasons now, then DeAndre Hopkins would still be number 1. Coming in at number 2 with 32 points out of a possible 50 is... And get ready for this, because first place was actually a tie, and I gave the tiebreaker to who was number 1 based off my eyes, so I kind of just gave it away. Number 2 is Stefon Diggs. So yes, 32 out of possible 50 points. That is tied for first place, but Stefon Diggs I am recognizing as number 2 because I gave my eyes the ultimate tiebreaker, so to speak. An insane catch rate. Stefon Diggs had an insane catch rate last year for the amount of volume that he got. With some 166 targets and 127 catches. I mean, I know the Bills offense just was pass frenzy last year, which I think a lot of offenses should kind of follow in that league. I mean, just throwing the ball is kind of useful in today's NFL to get some chunk yards. And Stefon Diggs, just the amount of volume that he got and to have such a high catch rate was absolutely insane. It was the 36th best season all time in terms of yards in a single season. And again, you look at Stefon Diggs, even though he doesn't have the yards per reception, maybe like a Tyreek Hill or a Justin Jefferson, right? But it's the fact that he got so much volume and the fact that he was so reliable for his team. And also, you do look at the eye test, so to speak, and the spray chart and the routes that he ran and the balls that he caught. I mean, it was more vertical than you would think by just looking at his stats and his advanced stats online. You know, yards after the catch per reception, not anything like a Tyreek Hill, but you look at everything that's online and you look at what he did for that spray chart and how he ran the route tree and where he was catching footballs, what routes he was catching them from. I mean, everything's vertical. Everything is vertical. Everything is going down the field. And to see Stefon Diggs have that great of a season in 2020 after having some tumultuous, is that the word? Tumultuous seasons in previous years, you know, wanting out of Minnesota, you know, 2020 was really only his second year of 100+ catches, whereas a guy like DeAndre Hopkins has put together those since 2017 every single year. So it could be a little controversial that Stefon Diggs is number 2. Could even be more controversial that he's tied with number 1, but we're kind of going off of 2020 stats, and Stefon Diggs, and just like Josh Allen, is going to need to prove that these guys are legit. I can imagine they may regress a little bit just because they had such banana seasons, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be bad. That certainly does not mean they're going to be bad. So, in number 1, we have Devonta Adams from the Green Bay Packers, and I think, just like I said with Aaron Rodgers, with the quarterback spot, you know, he was number 1 with 81 points out of possible 100, and Devonta Adams has 32 points out of possible 50, and if you multiply that by 2, it's 64. So out of the positions that we've done so far, it's been Aaron Rodgers, 81 out of 100, Derrick Henry, 77 out of 100, and then Devonta Adams, 64 out of a possible 100 points. So this was the kind of like the least dominating performance so far, but Devonta Adams has dominated the National Football League in terms of being seen as the best wide receiver in the National Football League. It does help when you have Aaron Rodgers throwing you the ball, and I think Devonta Adams realizes that too, certainly with some of the comments that he's made this offseason. But ultimately, having Aaron Rodgers, having the system kind of come to him, right, where we talked about in the quarterback episode, where Aaron Rodgers just took the scripted and the scheduled throws in front of him, and he wasn't necessarily just always playing hero ball. And when you have a guy like Devonta Adams to help you with those scripted plays, it's like you need to take those opportunities. Like to have those plays where Devonta Adams is just gonna, you know, run a slant, he's gonna run a curl, he's gonna run an out route. Like those are quick scripted plays that you can make where Devonta Adams is gonna create that separation, he's gonna get the yards after the catch, and he's gonna help you put points on the board because he is the best at what he does in the league. And of course, when Aaron Rodgers is improvising, when Aaron Rodgers is scrolling to his left, when he's scrolling to his right, he has that connection with Rodgers, Devonta Adams and Rodgers does, where they're going to find each other and they're going to get open and they're going to improvise and they're going to create explosive plays that way too. So it helps when you have Devonta Adams to help with those scripted plays, but then also the non-scripted plays, that's where a guy like Adams comes in really, really handy dandy too. Same thing with Tyreek Hill, same thing with Stefon Diggs, same thing with a lot of these guys on this list. I feel like, why don't you look at that? Rodgers a pretty mobile quarterback, good wide receiver. Kyler Murray, pretty mobile quarterback, really good wide receiver with the off-scripted stuff. Josh Allen, Stefon Diggs, really good wide receiver, and those guys are the guys. And Pat Mahomes, mobile quarterback. Tyreek Hill. I think we just found the trend. All right, so there you go. That's the top 5 list for these wide receivers. And the one worst. We got to talk about the one worst. I have it right here. KJ Hamler from the Denver Broncos. He's 5'9", 178 pounds. He was a second-round pick in last year's draft from Penn State. So sorry, I know there's probably a lot of Penn State fans out there. But he had a really bad rookie year. In terms of those efficiency metrics, DVOA, defense yards above average, in terms of all the Football Outsiders, he was bottom of the barrel in that. And what really stuck out to me is that he had 2 fumbles and 7 drops. So that's a nice drop rate of 12.5%. So in 56 targets, he had 7 drops and then also 2 fumbles as well. So I wanted to count guys that at least had over 30 receptions if I was gonna consider them the worst. And KJ Hamler finished with 30 receptions, right on the dot. But you want to know what? He switched his number. He went from number 13 to number 1. So KJ Hamler, Ajita. KJ Hamler, wide receiver number 1 this year. Over Jerry Jeudy. All right. There you go. That's it. We'll see you tomorrow. One more episode for the Edge Rushers. Peace.